taking the wins and losses record as a column into anything too major of a factor, but definitely a few things to consider. Just kind of looking at some of the players and getting to know them. So some more general thoughts on that, Gavin, moving forward. And what are you looking forward to the most here for the Phillies season?
Well, real quick, I'm actually happy about this. I know we didn't win, nor did we lose, but last year teams like this we wasn't really putting up runs against. So I'm glad to see we can actually fight with these guys, fight with teams like the Yankees, the Astros, the cheating Astros, if I may say, the Dodgers, the new super team Dodgers, the Angels. I want to see them be able to fight with these type of teams. But I'm excited for the season. Like I said, when they hired Joe Girardi, I think I was the first to say it when this question was asked in the club last year. I said I want Joe Girardi here right now, and I kept praying for Joe. I think every night I went to see, I said Joe Girardi, Joe Girardi, Joe Girardi, and we got him. So I'm actually happy that he's here now. I think this is going to be a positive influence and like a positive way, and hopefully a great season. Zach, what about you?
No, I agree. I think it's definitely it's a change. And so for Gabe Kapler, it wasn't. Just it's a difficult situation with Gabe Kapler. He pulled pitches early. Not a big fan of that. He always was messing around with the lineup like it was a pile of Play-Doh, and it's really hard to have solidified consistency when you can't have what it is consistency. Your pitchers were not the best last year, but your offense was good. You lost you not a locker room, I guess you'd say, but you lost your dugout, I guess I'd say. But I think it's a tricky situation. It's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to look at. And I think it's one of the things that's going to improve this year is being able to do that.
Yeah, Gabe Kapler wasn't the best manager for us, but I will give this real quick. I salute you, Gabe Kapler, for kneeing last night in the game. I salute that. I know I'm not a big fan of Gabe Kapler, the manager, but as a person and what he did, yes, I salute that.
Yes, now we did see the San Francisco Giants have a few players that are kneeling. I assume that's going to be a trend that's going to continue to pick up, and we'll see what happens here, given now what the NBA is going to be following suit, and we'll continue to see as we continue this fight for social justice here across the country. Again, one thing we like to emphasize on this show very much so, continuing our conversation with unity and moving forward.
Awesome. Can't wait.
All righty. So, Gavin, any final statements you wanted to say here on the Philadelphia Phillies, as well as maybe Zach? I know Zach, we're looking forward to having as a pitcher Aaron Nola here. But what about some of the other guys? Nick Pivetta, Vince Velasquez last night, who did play well until Aaron Judge hit an absolute monster off of him. But what are some of your additional thoughts?
Zach Wheeler is really good. I like him. I like everybody we got here. I like the new pitching. They look motivated. Even though we didn't bring anybody, but they just look motivated. Aaron Judge, like I said, is on a complete tear right now. When healthy, I think Aaron Judge may or may not be, but I argue this, and I will argue this to the end of the season. When healthy, I think Aaron Judge is probably the best player in baseball, or one of the best players in baseball. I still think it could be Mookie Betts. I don't believe anybody in Houston after cheating. Some may say Mike Trout, and I'm not going to argue against Mike Trout, or Cody Bellinger. But Aaron Judge, if you don't put him up there top 4, top 5, I don't know. But I think when healthy, he might be arguably the best player in baseball.
He's a big player. He's strong. And so that kind of brings us to it, Gavin. He's on a tear right now. Do you think he has a true bounce-back year in him?
Yes, I think so. And remember, he was out entirely all of last year. And when he came back for the playoffs, he wasn't horrible. He still killed the baseball a little bit, but playoff baseball is a little bit harder than regular season baseball. So obviously the home run producers is not going to be up. But I think New York is the scariest team in all of baseball because they can kill the ball at any point. Anyone in their lineup can just go yard. And their ballpark, which I'm a fan of because I love their ballpark, been there in person, Zach, it's fantastic. I suggest you go one day. Maybe we can. But that's a deadly team. You add Garrett Cole. You add, you don't lose nobody. Even though Aroldis Chapman is a monster in the bullpen, it's just fantastic. That's a fantastic team, and it's a scary, dangerous team. But I'm glad to see we can go toe for toe with them. So that gives me hope for the season.
I hope so. We'll see. So we do have a quick ad plug for everybody, and then we have one more topic before we bring in our special guest. We're also going to take this quick opportunity to share the link with some people that are currently not watching yet. We do have the link readily available on our YouTube. We'll be right back after this. We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom design mask with our logo on it. Purchase it today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewer's choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes two 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mass sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Again, we'll continue to offer you more cool things like that. You can take a look at the link in the description. You'll be able to purchase yourself a mask. Gavin, ours are on the way, so hopefully we'll be able to wear them soon. Again, our plan is to hopefully be able to go out and about and kind of do the show on the road and be able to show off the mask while we're out. So I think it's going to be a cool opportunity.
You know what we should do too, Zach? I just thought about this right now. I'm gonna say it on here. If anyone wants to do the show with us, but you want us to come to your home, we'll bring our mask.
You want to do it from the home?
We're taking the show on the road.
I agree. It should be fun as we continue to move forward with it. Gavin, you've showed a lot of a mix of optimism and realism with the bubble. It's been leaning towards optimism. 0 positive cases this week in the testings in the bubble. Are we able to call it a success yet? Is it too early or something else? Gavin, what are your thoughts?
Well, I gotta see contact from other guys and other teams. It's easy for anyone that's playing on the same team to do that because they're not growing that hard in practice. That's why I'm waiting to see the inter-squad games or the scrimmages and then the games. But so far, I think it's a success. I apologize, Adam Silver. I'll come out and say, I'm sorry, Adam Silver. You are the greatest commissioner there is. And this is a success. Everybody is being smart about their movement. There's only been one mishap in the bubble so far with Sean Holmes. He went outside the restricted area. And they're getting daily testing every day. NFL, take notes. They put them in a bubble. They're doing daily testing. They're living in a resort. I know it's a little bit harder for the NFL to do a bubble because there's more guys ultimately on that team. But I will say this, Zach. My concerns, they're still there. But are they as high as they were? Not anymore. They're lower. I want to say like a 2%. I'm 2% worried right now.
Yeah, it's fair. Again, if you stay in the bubble, our biggest concerns have been, for the most part, given the employees that are going home and coming back and things like that, which are legitimate concerns, I'd say so. But no, other than that, it's been a good success so far. Game start tomorrow for the preseason, et cetera. Gavin, what are some – I know we talked about yesterday what we're most excited about and least excited about, but what are some different elements now that you'd say, now that we know the bubble is starting to hopefully be a success? Again, 0 positive cases this week. And now we can start seeing teams like the Sixers really going out there and playing, and it's going to be happy. Are you happy to see sports coming back tomorrow, specifically with basketball?
I am, especially the message they're giving out, Zach, especially on the court and, the guys' jerseys too. I remember I was on the fence of them not playing, and then I took a day and I was like, well, maybe they should go and play. I'm just happy to see it back, and I'm happy that they're going to stick to their message of social justice and try to push for change. I'm happy to see, the guys. I'm ready to see Ben Simmons hopefully shoot 3 balls in Orlando, and I'm ready just to see everybody get back to it and keep the message rolling forward.
I agree. I'm very excited for that. So other than that, Gavin, just tracing it back now, talking about the Sixers and given with Ben Simmons' current situation at the power forward position, we're going to break that down and much more after this. We have our guest coming on, Dom. It's going to be very exciting here. We're going to be breaking down as well the NCAA and how the return to sports could potentially look. Should be exciting, very fun. We're also talking about high school and more right after this. Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this. And again, 10% will be going to an organization this month that will be donating to minority entrepreneurs. It should be a lot of fun. We're going to learn more as we continue to go on, again, spreading our message as much as we can. But with that being said, we are bringing on a familiar face to the show. Dom Amoroso. Dom, it's great to have you back on the show. How you doing today?
It's always good to be back, fellas. How are you guys?
Doing good. Very excited to be here.
I'm doing well, Dom. Thanks for coming back.
Nah, man, as always, and anything I can do, man. It's great. Appreciate it.
Definitely, but let's get started with it. We want to kind of break down. We know you have a lot that you wanted to go over. We know that you mostly focus with the high school level, a lot of the students playing basketball. We spoke about before things you can do in the off season, but now we're getting closer to what potentially could be a season. We're seeing on that professional level starting to return. So it's lead by example, I guess, has kind of been the big thing now. A lot of people taking the initial steps. So the NHL was the first team to unveil an opening plan, and then now we see other sports following suit. So Dom, I'll ask you this: what do you see right now currently? We'll start with college basketball. What is the current layout? We know right now, given with the Ivy League, what they're doing with the cancellations. Again, football has been pretty widely known to be partially canceled. We haven't really heard that much about basketball yet, so I'm curious to see what kind of inside information you can provide us.
Well, I'll say this, and to be honest, you in all seriousness, everybody kind of knows as much as the guy next to him, whether it's a college coach or an average Joe off the street. We don't know what turns this is going to take. We get the Big Ten coming out saying that they're going to, for football and for fall sports, they're only going to do in-conference sports. The Ivy League and the Patriot League, which are, the two best high academic Division I leagues in the country, have came out saying they're not doing fall sports. The SEC, I think, is making a push to do, as much as they can in terms of normalcy down there. The Pac-12 kind of coming out in the same stance as the Big Ten. There's so many unknowns, and I think the thing we really have to look at is what the actual schools are doing. What is the school's plan for going back? This is kind of where we have to forget the athletic programs. My biggest concern isn't how college athletics is going to be conducted. My biggest concern is can we keep students safe in a college campus and realistically expect them to follow social distancing protocols. I'm a college student. You guys are going to be college students in another year. It's hard for me to picture this fall. I get it. We can have kids in classrooms with masks. We can have coaches at practices in masks. But are kids going to social distance at fraternity parties? Probably not. Are kids going to social distance in dorm rooms? Probably not. So I think a lot of this is really out of the athletic department's hands, and it's really, we really have to watch the movements of the respective administrations at each institution. So it's real tough to gauge. I'm 50-50 on whether we'll see fall sports in college this fall. In terms of basketball, it's hard for me to imagine them starting on time. I'll leave it at that.
Well, Dom, going back to what you said about starting up what the whole school is doing. I've been on the show saying I feel like after the holidays. I'm not talking about Halloween. I'm not talking about Thanksgiving. I'm not talking about the winter holiday. I'm talking about after all of them. I'm talking about January 1st, sometime in January. I think that's when we're gonna go back as a whole, go back to school from there. I know Zach said the same thing or another way as well. So, Dom, what are you thinking? Where do you think we're going to go back? Because I don't see a September 1st start happening.
Well, if we're talking about, are we talking about the high schools?
We're just talking about high school in general. Then I'll switch it to college.
So, with high schools, it's obviously state by state. In Pennsylvania, I think there's a really strong push and pull, between the school districts out in the western part of the state. I think the western part of the state is much more, pushing for us to really, be back to normal. Even, if the kids have to go in there with masks and the teachers have to go in there with masks, I think, those districts in the western part of the state that the communities, and I'm not talking about Pittsburgh, I'm talking about all the little communities that surround Pittsburgh, Johnstown, Aliquippa, those real rural steel town areas that rely on, the high schools to kind of drive the community for those couple months. They're kind of pushing for things to get back to the way they were. But here in the eastern part of the state, I think, we're taking a much more cautious approach, which I think is, the safest thing to do, as long as we're keeping people safe. I don't think, we can have arguments. That's just at least my opinion. But to your point, Gab, I think it is hard for me to see, even, though a lot of these districts, and we were talking about before the show, around here doing blended learning, and, some days some students come in, some days students don't. I just think, there's just there's too much to work out for it to work 100%. We have to be realistic. Can we, I can't speak for Westchester School District, even though I'm a Westchester resident and taxpayer. It's kind of sad. But, for example, like I told you guys, in Chichester, where I coach, the plan is, if students want to come in, they're giving families the option. They come in 2 days a week, they're home the other 3. In my opinion, if I'm a parent, and I'm working from home, I'm probably not going to send my kids for 2 days a week. To me, there's no point. If I'm going to have them home for 3, I might as well have them home for the other 2. But I like that there's the option, for parents that may not be able to have their kid, home all 5 days of the week, and they have to go work. It's like I said, it's such a individual by individual thing. It's really fascinating, when we break it down to that level. I just think, it's hard to see, things running smooth by September 1st. I think things will be up and running into schools, but whether it's smooth or not, I think is a different story.
I agree. I think it's definitely going to be tough. And for one thing, one of the debates really has been is that if you're not sending your college students back, how are you going to expect your college athletes to want to return? They're not being things like that. Obviously, some get scholarships, but that's really not the case for a lot of these schools that we really talk about, with a lot of D2, D3 athletes that are playing the sport they love, and they're not going to go out there and risk their lives if they're not expected to. If there's a regular student, it's going to be a tough situation. What are some of your general thoughts? I know we spoke about this pre-show, but I'm curious for some of the viewers, some general thoughts on pushing the season back to the spring or even late winter.
Well, from an all sports standpoint, as a temporary thing, I understand 100%. From a basketball alone standpoint, to me, we can start late, but we have to watch how late is late. I'm going to beat you guys to the punch because I know you guys wanted to bring this up to me. But in California yesterday, they just announced that they're not going to do the high school basketball season until March. For me, first off, that was a bit of a bummer because I was looking forward to seeing Sierra Canyon and Camden playing up at Hoop Hall in January, seeing Bronny James and going against DJ Wagner and Taquan Woodley. I was really looking forward to seeing that. I guess, we're not going to see that unless everybody decides to push back that far. I don't think that'll be the case. It's tough to say just as somebody that coaches high school and AAU, thinking about both sides. And the NCAA, like I said to you guys pre-show, the NCAA will make adjustments and the NABC will put out their recommendations. But it's hard for me to see a successful high school basketball season being ran in March unless we're going to push AAU back, because like I told you guys, the first live period for AAU for the sneaker circuits is April. So, if I'm Bronny James, my high school basketball season, if it's now March and April, well, in April, I'm going to have to, make a choice unless there's some sort of accommodation between both sides. And like I said, thinking about it now, it'll probably, if the high school basketball season in a majority of the states gets pushed back that late, I'm sure AAU will adjust, and the sneaker circuits and the NCAA, they'll all adjust. But if I'm Bronny James, now I have to make a choice between playing a game at Sierra Canyon on a Thursday or leaving that Thursday night to go to Dallas for the first EYBL session. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think, and I get it. There's a lot of there's a rift between high school sports associations, and basketball is not the only sport that sees this. I'm sure in baseball, although I think it's a little more symbiotic with American Legion and the high school federations. But from a basketball standpoint, I know there's a lot of tension between how much should be from the high school side, how much should be from the travel side. It's just so hard for me to see it working out. And I think if we push it, if we start the season in March, well, okay, unless let's say they don't push the circuits back, the season's only going to be a month, and you're going to be doing training camp for AAU. In PA, I don't think that'll be the case though.
Well, well said, and that's right. And I just want to bring up another point that I just thought about just now after you said Brian James having to think between Sierra Canyon and AAU. What about the high school players that that do baseball, Zach, and do basketball at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a really good baseball player,
sports.
That's a lot of sport and just a lot of toll on your body. I know baseball is like a spring, late March, early April type game, but that's a lot of stress and wear and tear on your body. So and it's a lot of running. So I don't think it's going to work at all for any of these guys. I think it's kind of pushing a little too close. And I think basketball, like you said, Don, basketball can be picked up and played anywhere, but for like these main guys, the Mikey Williams, the Bronny James, these guys got AAU teams. And I think sometimes the colleges look at their AAU when you're like, and Dom, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think colleges look at their AAU as well. I think they would like to go with their AAU as more than their actual school. But another thing I'm going to bring up to you guys, to everybody, and this is from an academic standpoint. Now we talk about the sports side, but let's talk about the junior class, that are now seniors. Let's talk about them. These guys that didn't get to take the SATs. I don't know. Some colleges are still pushing for them. And I know some colleges aren't. They have to make a decision sometime soon. I think some of it depends on decision of where some may or may not be able to go. So, Don, I want to ask you this question: have you heard anything about the SATs or ACTs? Have you heard anything about them not being taken or
yeah?
Not?
So the NABC, which for those in the audience that don't know, is the National Association of Basketball Coaches. It's comprised of all the college basketball coaches and a ton of high school coaches. They make recommendations to the NCAA, based off of what they feel should be done. So the NABC put a recommendation into the NCAA saying, hey, at least for this year, let's wait. And I think they want to make it a permanent change, and I'm on board with it. At least for this year, let's waive SAT, ACT requirements. Because a lot of the young men and women aren't able to take the SAT, ACT, and a lot of I'm not going to name, I don't want to mention any schools in this area, but there's a lot of the top players in this area that could play at some of the local schools. Even though they weren't, they were decent academic students, their SAT, ACT scores weren't the best, and it withheld some of those coaches from offering them a scholarship. So I think that's certainly a permanent change that needs to be made. And to speak a little more on that, I think one of the silver linings of this pandemic is not just in our world, but in the sports world, I think we're seeing a lot of permanent changes slowly being introduced, and I think this is a good time for that to be done. So I think it's for a lot of these junior kids, and I was talking with a coach at another school the other night, and fortunately, he's got a couple kids that are all set with their situations, but he's got one or two kids that if we don't have a season, how are coaches going to evaluate them? Are they going to go off of just last year? If there's no AAU, what are they going off of? The evaluation process is, like I said, the first time I came on with you guys, there are things about it that have remained the same, but the further and further we go without having any competition, the more and more we're going to have to adapt and we're going to have to change. So I think the academic side will be taken care of. I think those adjustments will be made. But if we don't have a season, or if we have a real abbreviated season, like I said, I'm not talking about in our area. I'm not talking about the Nazim Poplars, the Jalen Durans, the Justice Williams, the Taquan Woodleys of the area. I'm talking about the Division II, Division III kids, that really rely more so on the high school side of things to get their recruiting done. So it's like I said, it's just so tough. It's just so tough, to really figure all this out right now.
No, it really is definitely a unique situation. It's definitely a tough one that we're all going to remember for a long time, no matter what perspective we're in, whether being high school students or being a high school basketball coach who's also involved in that recruiting process for a lot of the kids going to college. Like you mentioned, there's strong students who struggle on the SATs. There's kids that aren't as great students but are good on the SATs. There's a wide variety of different people, and so it's eliminating some different factors that either are relevant or not relevant depending on how you see it. There's different opinions on whether or not SATs are a necessary thing this year. It's being put to the test, no pun intended. It's really being talked about this year as far as what is important and what isn't. So at the end of the day, they have to be able to play this year, though. There's a lot of juniors this year, even seniors that are fringe offer guys who are maybe being withheld offers right now.
Yeah.
Maybe the SAT could have been one of those factors where it could give these kids a higher opportunity to get access to a school that they can really go and they can go play basketball at. So it's gonna be a unique situation. It's definitely hard to mitigate it right now, but like you mentioned, just as hard as overlap for different sports. As far as the possibility for the NCAA, as far as the basketball season, you mentioned this in the pre-show. You can definitely touch on that again as far as starting the NCAA basketball season short and then kind of just having an abbreviated season going up into the conference play for conference championships and then March Madness.
Yeah, well, I will say this, and I just want to give credit to the college coaches in our area. I will say if we do have an abbreviated season, I think our teams, the Philadelphia Big Five and the City Six and the D2s and the D3s, I think will be among some of the best prepared teams in the country. Everybody in the audience, I think here knows Jay Wright. He's one of the best coaches in the country. Villanova will certainly be prepared, but I'm confident that Ash Howard's going to have LaSalle prepared. I'm confident that Aaron McKee is going to have Temple prepared. Same with Zach Spiker at Drexel, Steve Donahue at Penn, and Billy Lang as St. Joe's. I think our teams in this area will be well prepared for a shortened season. And not that the college season is a much longer grind than people think. From having been a manager for a year at the Division I level, I can speak to that. But like I said, I think it'll look a little different. Maybe they kind of do what the MLB is doing. And, if your non-league schedule is determined by your geographic location. So, we may see, Temple doing, some more non-league games this year with Big East teams. We may see instead of them, playing, in these – I don't necessarily think we'll have, the Maui Invitational this year or the, the big one, the 2K Classic up at the Garden. We may see, like you said, teams doing non-conference games by geographic location. You may see Temple playing Seton Hall and St. John's. We may see, Villanova playing a couple more ACC schools in their non-league schedule. So I think that may be one of the things we see just for this year. I think there will be some good matchups. I think the tournament's going to probably stay the same as is. I don't think we'll see a shortened tournament. But as you guys were talking about earlier with I think this is a new coin term that we're going to be hearing for a while is these bubble concepts. The NCAA.
I want to know. Sorry to cut you off, but
yeah, absolutely.
I want to get your opinion on the bubble. We've seen the NBA have a successful bubble. Same thing with MLS. So, what's your opinion on the bubble? Do you like it or no?
I like it and I don't like it. If we're talking about college sports, I think we kind of see that a little bit. With I think we'll see that with the NCAA tournament. Obviously it'll be broken up to locations like it usually is. But then the question becomes, what happens? And like I said, we're a little under half a year out from the 2021 NCAA tournament. So hopefully we'll have some type of vaccine or we'll have a much better idea of how to do this by then. But how let's say if it was going on now, if I'm Villanova and I'm playing in, I'm playing the first round in Pittsburgh and I get to the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight in the East region, which is usually up in Boston, how am I gonna, what do I do when I get to, do we have to quarantine once we get to Boston? Do we, or if you're a team, like the West region is one of the bigger regions, you may start in Iowa, but then you might have to go to LA to play in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight, and like I said, it goes, state by state. So it's a lot more relaxed in Iowa where since the start of this thing, they haven't had a ton of cases, but now I'm going to California where, even if
There's
the
a
cases
lot.
are dropping, there's a ton of restrictions. So,
Well, you make a great point. Sorry to cut you off, Don, but you make a great
yeah,
point.
absolutely.
If you want to take it deeper, besides state by state, you got to take it by city. Remember,
In the county, yeah,
when
no, it's definitely.
county by county, when we opened up, the city of Philadelphia was not opened up yet.
Right.
I remember the city of Philadelphia, when we went green, they just hit yellow. So it also depends on where you are. And just like now, we're looking at all the cases that are, destinations for travel for summer. The Florida, the California, all the southern states, they're having their peak that didn't have their peak before. Whether the northern states that did, that already had their peak, and we're going down because I think it's because the less people that are in the state, the more that travel, their cases are going up. So I think also you got to put that in consideration as well.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And, the other thing too is, what if some schools aren't still in school by next spring? I think it's Harvard that's going to be online for the entire academic year. And I'm sure, a couple more of the there's not a lot of them, but I'm sure, the rest of the Ivy League is probably going to follow. And not to, not no discredit to any other schools or not to, excuse anything, but they are the Ivy League. Not only are they some of the top academic institutions in the world, I'm sure all of their medical schools are working on some type of vaccine or, research. No, I'm serious.
I know you are.
I'm sure. I'm sure I'm sure they're all, I'm sure they're, they have their medical students doing all this research, that the administration can have at their fingertips, which is why, them in the Patriot League schools, can have those informed decisions a lot quicker than, some of these other institutions, so it's like I said, to bring it back to, the whole thing where it's, it's a case by case thing. Like I said, I'm hoping, even if, like, and I kind of said this to you guys before the show, I'm hoping even if there are online classes, we can eventually, next spring, even if stuff's still remote, have some form of college athletics. But, like I said, I understand it's hard to kind of question, some of the moves that are being made on the fly just because, this thing's changing day and night on the fly.
You're right. And I think Zach has one more question for you, but for me, you're right. It's difficult for these guys at the collegiate level and high school level as well. It kind of falls at the fate of the school, what the school does. And then once we get into the school, remember you can't just put the athletes in. You gotta get everybody else that attends the school too. So it's a lot of planning go around. But so you got anything?
We have one more topic. We're going to wrap up here in the last 5 minutes. But Gavin, I echo what you said. It's a tough situation. It's very unique, and time will tell, as we always tend to say on the show. We'll obviously hope for the best, but got to make the most informed decisions possible. Shifting gears now, talking about the NBA a little bit, Dom. We asked this question on the show yesterday. Gavin and I both answered, but I want to get some of your thoughts on this, and then we'll have one final question for you. What are you most excited about here in the bubble for the NBA? It could be a storyline, it could be a team, it could be anything involving the bubble. And what are you least excited about moving into this?
In terms of what I'm most excited about, I'm just most excited to see basketball back. Live basketball, live NBA basketball. We had live basketball with the TBT in the past few weeks, which was awesome to watch. But I'm just excited to see pro basketball back. I'm real interested, just to see, as a coach, aside from the chess matches that are going to go on, I think the one thing that's going to really separate, teams in this type of situation is, aside from talent, the NBA, it's, the best of the best, the talents, it's the cream's going to rise to the top, right? But, I think the one thing that's going to separate some teams from others is health and chemistry. So I'm really interested to see, how some of these teams perform in this type of situation. What I'm least excited about is it's hard for me to say no fans because as somebody that coaches AAU, it's going to look a little familiar to and first off, they're doing it at Disney's Wide World of Sports where they have AAU tournaments all the time. I've never been in the Wide World of Sports. I've been to Disney World. I love it. I've never been in Wide World of Sports. So I can't say like it's going to be weird for me to watch without fans. To me, it's going to be like watching an AAU tournament with grown men. So I think that's kind of funny. But in terms of what I'm least excited to see is probably just, like I said, it might just feel a little weird at first, but I don't think I'm really, there's anything that I'm least excited to see, if that makes any sense.
No, I got you. It's definitely just going to be exciting to get basketball back. I agree. Just as a big avid sports fan watching professional basketball, it's going to be great. I miss those late Saturday nights watching ESPN, watching either the Blazers or a team out west playing. So
yeah,
I agree with you on that. And then so our final two questions. Number one, who's taking the 8 seed in the West? And finally, who is your finals pick?
Ooh, God, that's tough.
And I'm going to pop wrong for you to make it even harder. Who's your MVP as well?
All right, Giannis is my MVP because we're doing the voting before when everything's shut down. I'm gonna go with Giannis. Okay. I see the case. I do see the case for LeBron, and I get Frank. I get Frank Vogel coming in. I hope he would come out. That's his guy. That's one of his players. I hope he'd advocate for him. But I'm gonna stick with Giannis. My finals champion. Well, let me go back to the 8th seed in the West first. My gut, is telling me New Orleans. I think they're one of these teams that, like I like the young nucleus, and I think this is I think the bubble is a good environment. And like I said, the two things that I'm really looking for, to see who really gets rolling in this thing are health and chemistry. Obviously, Zion, has to get his game mileage up compared to where the rest of his team has been.
Yeah.
With him missing some time early on in the season. But I think the bubble is a really good environment for a young team to kind of get that chemistry down. So I like New Orleans being the 8th seed in the West.
And finally, the finals favorite.
It's hard not to go. It's hard to go against the Lakers. It's hard to go against the Lakers. Like I said, they are the most talented team. The team I picked to win in the beginning was the Clippers. I think their chemistry was going to be down pat from day one. Aside from talent, they're just a bunch of dogs, man. Aside from PG and Kawhi, Pat Beverly, Montrezl Harrell, those guys are dogs. Lou Williams is a dog. I just like how those guys play together. In terms of my guys in the West, the Lakers, the Clippers. If I had to go with a third team, it'd probably be Denver. In the East, I think Milwaukee has the best chance. Oh, my bad. Were you trying to say something, Gav?
No, I said that's new. I'm gonna get to your Denver, but go ahead, keep going.
In the East, the Bucks, have been the best team. Obviously, like I said, they have the league MVP. They've been playing at a high level from day one. So I get where people come from with Milwaukee, but a team that I keep fighting for, in conversations like this is Toronto. They didn't really miss a beat with losing Kawhi. Siakam only got better. They didn't lose a ton of guys from that championship team, except for Kawhi and Danny Green. But that nucleus is still together. They're all for the most part they're all healthy. So I'll go Toronto over Milwaukee again coming out the East. It's harder for me to tell in the West. I'm gonna go with the Clippers though. I'm gonna go with the Clippers, and I'm gonna go with Toronto, and I'm gonna go with the Clippers as my champion. It might change between now and then. If you have me on again, I might change my mind.
To ask you again, definitely
watching the games. But right now, I'm gonna go with the Clippers over the Raptors.
All right, Gavin, any final statements here as we wrap up today's show?
No. First of all, thank you for coming back, Dom. Appreciate it.
No problem.
We'll be in contact pretty soon, hopefully. And Nuggets. That's new.
They're my third. If I had to pick a third team in the West to come out of, it'd probably be them.
Nuggets. That's new. I'm going to think on that one. I'm going to respond another day, maybe off the air. I'm going to call you down.
That sounds good, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Apologies again for some of those technical difficulties. Still figuring out some of those as we continue here on this new show. But thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post